Warning, this video is the byproduct of large amounts of coffee, a healthy dose of political anger, and some dry British wit which you may or may not get. Viewer discretion is advised.
I try really hard not to get political on Transport Evolved channels, and I'm going to try and keep that going. But when I hear about things being done by the current US government agencies that fly in the face of not only common sense and science, but also good taste and decency, well, I generally sit down at my keyboard and bash my head frustratedly. But today, I'm going to try and take my frustration and do something useful with it. And because this is Transport Evolved Take 2, I hope you'll understand that what I'm about to say is my own personal view. And this is something that I would not want to put on the main channel. It's something maybe a little different. And while some people may say what follows is political, I'd counter with the following two things. 1. I'm a passport-wielding voting citizen of the country I now reside in, which I've learned means I can now at least openly voice my opinions. And 2, this isn't really a political issue. It's being made political by many, which kind of nullifies what I said in the earlier bit of the video, but still. Science isn't politics. Marketing spin? Maybe. Okay. So picture the scene. I'm driving to work and I hear that the US Department of Energy, the same government body which at one time was actively helping the transition away from fossil fuels and onto clean, renewable forms of energy, has just renamed some pretty well-known gases. Carbon dioxide? Well, that's going to be called, quote, molecules of freedom, while liquefied natural gas, or LNG as you may previously know it, is going to be called freedom gas. These rebrandings took place at the 10th Clean Energy Ministerial Conference in Vancouver, Canada, where the Department of Energy is supposedly, quote, highlighting its efforts to advance clean energy. Quote, increasing export capacity from the Freeport LNG project is critical to spreading freedom gas throughout the world by giving America's allies a diverse and affordable source of clean energy. Furthermore, exports of US LNG to the world means more US jobs and more domestic economic growth and cleaner air here at home and around the world. Thus said the US Undersecretary of Energy. The Assistant Secretary of Fossil Energy said meanwhile, quote, I am pleased that the Department of Energy is doing what it can to promote an efficient regulatory system that allows for molecules of US freedom to be exported to the world. US freedom molecules. Meanwhile, everyone else at the conference was, of course, focusing on accelerating the transition to a low and zero carbon future, focusing on things like renewable energy and zero emission solutions. Honestly, I can't faceport enough, so I'm going to try and unpack these stupid rebrandings a little, for my own sanity and yours. First, let's unpack the whole freedom molecules and freedom gas idiom. The US is currently expanding its export of LNG around the world, but to call it freedom anything when it's a product that other countries will have to rely on the US for is, well, it's a bit bonkers. Solar energy? Wind energy? Well, yeah. They could legitimately be called freedom power because they're generated near to where they're used. Calling a bottled product freedom anything when you're relying on other countries to pay for it is a bit like offering someone a free slap-up meal, but then forcing them to pay for the plate they need to put it on. Next, let's look at the whole idea that a fossil fuel product like LNG could actually bring freedom to a country. According to the Union of Concerned Scientists, natural gas does emit 50 to 60% less CO2 when compared to a modern coal-fired power plant. When used to power a car, there is 15 to 20% less heat-trapping gases emitted when burning LNG compared to either petrol or diesel. But the actual drilling and extraction of natural gas is a carbon-intensive process, and simply transporting natural gas usually leaks a pretty large amount of methane into the air. That's a gas that is 86 times stronger than CO2 at trapping heat in the atmosphere over a 20-year period, and 34 times stronger than CO2 at trapping heat in the atmosphere over a 100-year period. Yes, NOx emissions are generally lower than they would be for other fossil fuels, but natural gas and its derivatives still emit heat-trapping gases into the air. They still emit particulates. And that will lead to increased pollution and global warming. And if leaks in natural gas and LNG storage aren't kept to a minimum, then the result can be equal to or worse than what it would be for other fossil fuels. And that's before we account for all the damage that's done to the local environment due to fracking, be it groundwater pollution, seismic instability, or worse. At this point, I should probably circle back to the idea of freedom gas. It's the same tactic used by society throughout history to give or sell something to someone else that will give them a short-term benefit that will ultimately have long-term consequences. The idea of something for nothing, but in the long term, you end up paying a lot. Maybe not financially, but in other ways. I know some of you watching this will criticise me for not being fair about other forms of energy generation and their own respective carbon footprints. Yes, there are environmental impacts to mining and refining the metals used in both lithium-ion battery packs and photovoltaic solar panels, and we need to improve on that as a society in order to be truly zero carbon, which means more recycling and more responsible sourcing of materials. Luckily though, unlike natural gas, these carbon footprints are dropping on a yearly basis, and an Argonne National Laboratory study from 2014 found that while Chinese-made solar panels have a larger carbon footprint than those made in Europe or the US, your average solar panel pays back the energy invested in the manufacturing of it in the first 2 years of use. And photovoltaic panels have a 30-year lifespan. Now that is what I call freedom. So how about it? If the US DOE wants to call natural gas a substance which does have a pretty big environmental impact freedom gas, then what about calling renewable energy freedom electrons? And isn't it time we stopped kidding ourselves about the energy we use and where it comes from? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and comment. And if you're finding this channel for the first time, please subscribe. Transport Evolved Take 2 is a little different to our main channel, but I think you're going to like it just the same. Oh yeah. Keep evolving.